On this week's episode of the Rutledge Perspective, let's delve into the issue of time. And I want to talk about with you and have you think about time and the connection to scarcity mindset. And this came about as we go into these last 4 months of the year, 4.5 months of the year. And I don't know about you, but I am constantly thinking, oh, okay, I've only got 4.5 months. I've only got, I'm wanting to do this by this deadline and I want this by this deadline. And one of the things I was really excited about is I wanted to get to 12,000 downloads of this podcast by the end of August. And no, by the end of July. I wanted to get to 12,000 downloads by the end of July. And then right as I announced it, Libsyn went down. And they had an issue with a database upgrade, and it caused all kinds of issues, including stats. And even now, my stats are a little wonky, and so I actually need to send a message to them. But so right in the middle of that, right as we were getting towards the end, I was like, man, so I moved the deadline and said, hey, if we get to that by August, which we have, so stay tuned for the celebration of that, I just moved the deadline. But it was a deadline that I set and didn't meet. And so I was having a conversation with my therapist, and you guys have been following me a long time know I've had a therapist forever, and I'm a true believer in therapy. And I love her. And it's a good thing that I have her. It's a good thing for a lot of people that I have my therapist. She's amazing. But we were talking about this whole idea of time and not having enough time and procrastination and fear of success, and money blocks and all the things, right? And what it came down to was, the real issue for me personally, the real issue is time. It's a time thing. And it stems from very, very young, actually. I've always been very aware of time. Very aware of time. And not just time in terms of being late to something or when you have to show up, but fleeting time. Like I remember being very, very young and saying, I know every great power has fallen. This was like third or fourth grade. I don't know where this stuff comes from. Every great power has fallen. I hope that happens after I die, right? I know it's going to happen, but I hope it happens after I die. And then as I started thinking about some things that are coming your way, that I'm launching based on your feedback, I kept saying, oh man, I've got to get it done by this deadline, or I need to get it done by this time, or there's not enough time to record the video and write the thing and do the thing and do all the stuff. And you either spend time or you spend money. And it's just this dramatic spiral. And so for those of you type A insecure overachievers, I know you're with me at this point. And so it started me to thinking, what is this obsession with time? Now, one of my favorite books that I recommend to my clients, and I've mentioned it to you guys too, is The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And I believe it's like chapter 6 or something, he talks about this idea of time. And he talks about Einstein time versus Newtonian time. And I actually reread that as I was about to make this podcast because this time thing kept coming up. And in his description, when he talks about Newtonian time, this thing that we have all gotten used to is this idea of scarcity. And there is some reality, right? So time is not renewable. Once the day is gone, the day is gone. We can't get that time back. Life is short. If you don't have time to do it right the first time, what makes you think you'll have time to do it over? There's all this pressure around the scarcity and the fact that time is fleeting, right? Time is short. Life is short. All these things of really telling us that there's not enough time. And in some cases, there is a sense of urgency, and we need to have a sense of urgency to make things happen. A sense of urgency when we feel things going wrong with our health, or a sense of urgency when we see disasters happening, those kind of things. We do need to respond in timely manners to things. But is everything an emergency, or has this scarcity of time actually started creating like this self-fulfilling prophecy? I don't feel like I have enough time, so therefore I don't have enough time. And as I think about this, and I want you guys to really think through, what does it really mean to set deadlines? So for those of you that are leaders, I had this conversations in one of the last big projects we were doing before I left my corporate role. And we had set this deadline for this big implementation. And probably about 2 or 3 months before we were supposed to be implementing, or at least a really short timeline before we were actually supposed to be implementing, I was sitting in a meeting with all of the leaders, my colleagues, and we were having this conversation. And as we were having this conversation, it was about fundamentals for this project, like fundamental things that should have been decided months prior if we were going to make this deadline. And we kept talking, and I kept sitting there and listening. And finally I said, guys, we are now sitting at, makeup date. We're not sitting at October. We're talking about, we're sitting at June. We were talking about an October implementation. And these are the questions that we're asking. I was like, and we've been talking about it for 45 minutes. So my question is, if the deadline is this deadline, what are we doing? Are we going to move the deadline because we've got one chance to do this right? Are we going to move the deadline because we've got all this after required information? Or are we going to change the scope? Because we have the option to do both of those. But from a timing perspective, if we've said this is the time it has to be done, these questions that we're asking should have been answered a long time ago. And so one of my colleagues said, oh, thank God somebody said it, right? So it's about speaking truth to power. Just say it. Just say it. But here's the lesson in that. There was so much pressure around, we set a deadline, we set a timeline, and this was big in this company, regardless of after acquired information. If you put something down on paper and that was the deadline, heaven forbid something happened and you change the deadline. It's just absolute insanity and unreasonableness because things happen and sometimes you have to change a deadline or change scope, one of the two. And so I remember sitting in there and thinking from a leadership perspective, sometimes you absolutely have to set a deadline or you'll just be spinning your wheels and not getting anything done. And in setting those deadlines, you have to give enough understanding and space to say, what about this deadline is absolutely non-negotiable? And what about it, we might have to be flexible enough because we know we're moving quick, right? Being quick and approximate versus slow and precise. We know we're moving quick, so there may be something that makes us change. How do we get okay as leaders with changing a deadline so that we don't all of a sudden start creating this narrative of you can never meet a deadline, you never get things done on time, you never get the right information, you're not performing? Because that's what happens surrounding this time that we have arbitrarily set for something. Now, clearly there are things where you have to file taxes at a certain time and you have to file reports at a certain time. So there's those kinds of things. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about projects. I'm talking about things that you put in place, reports that need to be done, internal processes upon which we put deadlines that then turn into sticks that we beat people up with. Because time, we've put this parameter on time that says there's not enough of it. There's not enough of it. It's scarce. We have to get things done very, very quickly. We have to get things done by a deadline. My suggestion is the bigger issue is, yes, we have to get things done because there are goals to accomplish, but is it the time or is it the goal? Is it excellence or is it speed? Because sometimes we sacrifice excellence in order to have speed. And that's okay as long as you know that's what you're doing. But if the focus is on time, we've got to do it faster, move faster, move faster, move faster. We've got to innovate. And you do have to be fast to innovate. You got to be quick to fail, right? We got to be willing to fail fast. Even that language says speed, 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 move, move, move. It doesn't give room necessarily for information gathering, for understanding, for contemplation. It doesn't give room for adjustment because time is fleeting. It's going away. I only have 4 months left in the year to be able to make, my budget or to make my revenue goal. All of these things make us feel like we don't have enough time. And Gay Hendricks argues that it's not so much this paradigm that we have, this Newtonian time, but Einstein time, that we are in and of ourselves, we are time. We make time for what's important. If we change our relationship to time, it changes time itself. Now that sounds all woo-woo and crazy and, time is there are only 60 minutes an hour, right? Only so many hours in a day. And all of those things are true because we have established those as the truth. We have set, as a human race, have set time to be a certain thing. And yet, if we put so much pressure on ourselves to get things done in a certain amount of time, what are we missing by simply running towards a deadline? What are we preventing ourselves from learning or from absorbing or from adjusting to in the essence of time? Because heaven forbid we miss a deadline, that we are not a person of our word because we didn't do something in the time we said we were going to do it. We've tied up our relationship, our reputation, our genius, our respectability, our reputation, all into time and our ability to do things on time and to meet deadlines. And those things are important because people count on us to do things. I'm by no means undermining the importance of setting deadlines and meeting your obligations according to those deadlines. That's really important because people do count on that. What I'm suggesting is that the deadlines themselves, most of the times arbitrary, could be the issue, not our ability or capability or desire to get something done in the time allotted. It could be the time itself. As I look at the end of this year and the things that I want to accomplish, it is quite a challenge to not let the time issue push me into a whole scarcity mindset. I don't have enough time. I'm so tired. I don't have time to sleep. I can't sleep. Why did I take a nap? Why didn't I do the thing? Why didn't I just do a few more things that day and I wouldn't have to do them the next day because I feel so much better when things are done? And all of that mindset that gets to this scarcity problem. There's not enough time. Time is not renewable, which is not. This minute that I just finished talking is gone. I'll never get that minute back, and neither will you. And so I appreciate your spending it with me. But is it really necessary to put so much pressure on ourselves to be time focused? Is everything time focused? Because sometimes quality may take a little bit longer. Sometimes the time you spend in contemplation is what enables you to move really quickly, right? Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Can you spend more time thinking and evaluating and deciding, and then you can move quicker, right? Can you change your process just a little bit where you spend more time up front so then you can spend less time in the execution because you've done some good planning, some good strategy. So instead of making time something that makes us crazy because there's not enough of it or feels like it's going away. And as you get older, the whole mortality thing, that's a big thing for me. I don't know about many of you, but that's a big thing for me is mortality, right? Especially, single Black female, right? No kids, no dog, just me. I really think about that a lot, that mortality issue. When I'm done, I'm done. That's it. Right? The legacy is gone. The human legacy is gone. So how do I spend the days that I have creating an impact, making an impact, creating a legacy where I have been able to help and assist and serve? Because there's nothing else that's going to be left, right? There's no kids to carry it on. There's no, none of those things exist in my life. And so how do I adjust that mindset around time so that time becomes a tool and a process for propulsion as opposed to a blocker for action? It is a powerful, powerful thing to be sitting in time, to be thinking about time, to put in deadlines, to use calendars, to do all of these things that we try to use to organize actually make us so aware of time that sometimes it becomes our own cage, our own prison of being able to be creative and thoughtful and serving. So as you go into the rest of this year, the rest of this week, the rest of your day, how are you evaluating and thinking about time? Are you putting so much pressure on yourself that you can't possibly get everything done that you want to get done because you're sending your nervous system into overdrive and you may just end up going into dorsal and just going to bed, just forgetting it all and just going to bed? I'm done. I can't do anything else, right? Are you pushing yourself by the stress of thinking about time into a situation where you're in fight or flight mode? What can you do to reshape your relationship with time so that it's not a scarcity mindset, that it is a time is my tool, time is my friend, time is something that I need in order to get some things done. And sometimes I need more of it and sometimes I need less. And I am going to control that narrative around time for me. Try to really think through that a little bit more this week. Be cognizant and aware of how many times you use time. How many times you tell yourself, oh, that took me way more than I thought. I don't have enough time to do the other things. Oh, how am I going to make all this work in my schedule? Sit back and pause a minute this week and really think about your relationship with time. Is it reasonable? Is it productive? However you define productivity. And is it really something that is helping you, or is it hindering you along the path to the things you say you want? Thank you so much for listening, for taking the time to listen to the Rutledge Perspective. I really appreciate it. Every listen, every download, every share, every promotion, every shout out. It is beyond humbling, and I'm so appreciative. As I said, we made over 12,000. We're past the 12,000 download mark now. And so I will be putting something out here. I'm going to try to do it by the end of the month. I will do it by the end of the month. I'm getting the little pieces for the swag box. I'll have 2 swag boxes that I'm giving away with some really cool things in them as a celebration of reaching 12,000 downloads. And so we'll be doing that towards the end of the month and probably do it in September, kick off September, my birthday month, with a giveaway for having achieved that great goal. So take some time to celebrate today, your big wins, the things that you have accomplished. You are amazing, just as you are. In this moment, you are enough. In this moment, you have everything that you need, including all of the time that you need. Have a fantastic day, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye. You have been listening to the Rutledge Perspective podcast. Thank you so much for downloading and for connecting. You can find previous episodes of the podcast on my website at laurelrutledge.com/podcast. You can also find me on social media at Laurel K. Rutledge and/or The Rutledge Perspective. And I'd love your perspective on the things we talk about. And if there's a specific topic you want me to cover, just let me know. And please share this podcast with someone in your village who may need this little piece of perspective today. And if you're so inclined, I would really appreciate a 5-star rating and review on the platform of your choice. Apple Podcasts and Spotify reviews are particularly helpful. Thank you again for listening. Take care.